No one noticed her at first. She stood near the glass doors of the corporate tower, clutching a thin file to her chest, her shoulders tense, her breath shallow. The lobby buzzed with polished shoes, confident laughter, and the quiet hum of money moving fast. This was a place where people walked like they owned the air around them. She didn't. Her name was Elena. 27 years old. Temporary assistant. Hired through an agency that reminded her every week how replaceable she was. Today was supposed to be simple. Deliver the documents to the executive floor. Get a signature. Leave quietly. That was the plan. The elevator doors opened on the top floor, revealing a hallway so silent it felt unreal. Framed awards lined the walls, Forbes covers, Global Leader Awards, billion-dollar growth plaques. At the end of the corridor, behind a massive frosted glass door, was the man everyone feared. Richard Hale. CEO. Billionaire. Known for firing people before lunch and forgetting their names by dinner. Elena stopped outside his office, smoothing her worn blazer. Her fingers trembled as she raised her hand to knock. "Come in," a voice snapped before her knuckles even touched the glass. She stepped inside. The office was cold, all steel, glass, and control. Richard Hale stood near the window, phone pressed to his ear, his back to her. He was tall, sharp-shouldered, every movement precise, like a man who had never doubted himself a single day in his life. Elena waited silently. Minutes passed. He ended the call with a sharp tap and turned around. His eyes swept over her, not with curiosity, but irritation. "What is this?" he said, pointing at the file. "Elena Torres, sir. Temporary assistant. I was asked to bring." "I didn't ask you," he cut in. "I asked for legal." Her throat tightened. "Legal asked me to." He sighed loudly, rubbing his temple. "Do you people not listen? Every day it's a new mistake." "People?" She swallowed. "I'm sorry, sir. If you could just—" "I don't have time for sorry," he said, walking toward his desk. "Put it there and leave." She placed the file down carefully. As she turned to go, his eyes dropped to the agency badge clipped to her blazer. He paused. "Wait." Her heart skipped. She turned back. "You're one of the temps, right?" he asked flatly. "Yes, sir." "How long?" 6 months. He scoffed. "That's 5 months too long for someone who can't follow instructions." The room felt smaller. "I followed what I was told," she said quietly. He looked at her then, really looked, and something in her calm seemed to irritate him more. "Listen," he said coldly, raising his voice just enough for the assistants outside to hear through the glass walls. "This company doesn't run on excuses. If you can't handle basic tasks, you don't belong here." The silence outside thickened. Heads turned. Eyes watched. Elena felt heat rush to her face, but she didn't look down. "I understand," she said. "Good," he replied. "Then understand this, you're done." The words landed heavy. "Excuse me?" she whispered. "I'm terminating your assignment. Effective immediately." He pressed a button on his desk. "Security will escort you out." A quiet gasp came from outside. Elena stood frozen. 6 months of long nights. Missed meals. Silent endurance. Gone in a sentence. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Instead, she nodded once. "All right," she said. Her voice didn't break. That surprised even her. As she turned to leave, she paused at the door. "Sir?" she said softly. He looked annoyed. "What now?" "You might want to read the document," she said, "before making permanent decisions." His jaw tightened. "Get out." She walked out of the office, past rows of staring employees. Some looked away in shame. Others watched with curiosity, like this was entertainment. The elevator doors closed. Only then did Elena let out the breath she'd been holding. Her hands shook as she reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. The screen lit up with a single unread message, one she had been avoiding all morning. Unknown contact. Have you told him yet? She stared at the message. No reply. The elevator reached the ground floor. Security waited, awkward, unsure whether to speak. She handed over her badge without a word and stepped outside. The city air hit her face, cold and sharp. Across the street, the glass building reflected her image, small, dismissed, invisible. But beneath her calm exterior, something else stirred. Not anger. Not fear. Certainty. Back upstairs, Richard Hale dropped into his chair and opened the file she'd brought. His eyes scanned the first page. Then the second. His expression changed. Slowly. The color drained from his face as he read the bold heading at the top of the document. Confidential. Shareholder transfer and ownership disclosure. His fingers tightened around the paper. A name appeared on the final line. A name he had just fired in front of everyone. Elena Torres. His breath hitched. What the hell? He whispered. And for the first time in years, Richard Hale felt something unfamiliar crawl up his spine. Fear. Richard Hale read the document again. And again. Then once more, slower this time, as if reading it differently might change what it said. It didn't. The numbers were clear. The legal language airtight. The signatures undeniable. Elena Torres wasn't just a shareholder. She was the majority owner. 61%. His hands trembled slightly as he flipped the pages, his mind racing faster than it had during any hostile takeover or market crash. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a mistake. This was real. The door to his office burst open. Sir? His executive assistant whispered, eyes wide. Is everything? Get her back, Richard snapped. Now. She's already left the building. His chest tightened. Then find her. The assistant hesitated. Security escorted her out. HR processed the termination. I don't care what HR did. He barked. Cancel it. Reverse it. Do whatever you have to do. The assistant nodded quickly and disappeared. Richard stood, pacing the length of his office like a caged animal. His reflection in the glass looked unfamiliar, not the untouchable titan everyone knew, but a man who had just made a catastrophic mistake. Down on the street, Elena walked without direction. The city moved around her like nothing had happened. Cars honked. People laughed. Life continued. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown contact. He knows now. She stopped walking. Her grip tightened around the phone. Good, she thought. 6 months ago, she had stood in a lawyer's office, listening as the truths she never expected shattered her understanding of her own life. Her mother hadn't died poor, as she'd always believed. Her mother had been strategic. Quiet. Prepared. The shares Elena inherited weren't meant to make her rich overnight. They were meant to protect her, and to test someone else. Richard Hale. The man who had built his empire on brilliance, yes, but also on cruelty. Back in the tower, panic spread like a silent virus. The legal department crowded into Richard's office, voices overlapping. This transfer was finalized months ago. It was done through a blind trust. She chose anonymity. If this goes public. It won't, Richard said sharply. But his confidence rang hollow. Why wasn't I informed? He demanded. The head counsel cleared his throat. Because you waived notification clauses for minority stakeholders years ago. To streamline decisions. The irony burned. He had designed the system that blinded him. Minutes later, the elevator doors opened again. Elena stepped back into the lobby. Not escorted. Not watched. She walked in freely. The receptionist looked up, confused. Miss, you're not authorized. I am now, Elena said calmly. Her phone buzzed with a new message. Richard Hale. Please come back upstairs. We need to talk. She didn't reply. Instead, she walked to the visitor seating area and sat down. Let him wait. Upstairs, Richard watched the security feed. She's in the lobby, someone said. He exhaled sharply. Clear the conference room. No, he corrected himself. Clear everything. Employees were ushered away, whispers trailing behind them. Something was happening. Everyone could feel it. When Elena finally stepped into the executive floor again, it was silent. Richard stood alone this time. No phone. No assistants. Just him. You should have told me, he said, forcing calm into his voice. Elena set her bag down slowly. You should have read the file, she replied. The words hit harder than any insult. Richard swallowed. I overreacted. That's an interesting word for public humiliation, she said evenly. He stepped closer. I didn't know who you were. That was the point. Silence stretched between them. You fired me, she continued. Not because I failed, but because you assumed. He opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, Richard Hale had no defense. You built this place to reward competence, she said. But you punish vulnerability. His jaw clenched. I worked here for 6 months, Elena went on. I watched people cry in bathrooms. I watched good employees disappear without explanation. I watched you. And what did you see? He asked quietly. A man who mistakes fear for respect. The words landed heavy. Richard looked away. What do you want? He asked. She met his eyes. I want transparency. I want accountability. And I want every termination decision reviewed, including mine. That could destabilize the company. Or save it. He studied her face, searching for hesitation. There was none. You planned this, he said. She nodded. My mother did. He stiffened. She believed people show their true selves when they think no one important is watching. Richard felt something twist in his chest. And I passed the test? He asked bitterly. Elena didn't answer right away. No, she said finally. You failed it. The word echoed. Outside the office, employees stood frozen, pretending not to listen. Inside, a shift occurred. Richard straightened slowly. Then let me make it right, he said. Elena picked up her bag. That, she replied, isn't your decision alone anymore. She turned and walked toward the door. Board meeting, she added over her shoulder. Tomorrow morning. The door closed behind her. Richard Hale stood alone again. Only this time, the room didn't belong to him the way it used to. And for the first time in his career, he realized something terrifying. Power could be taken. And tomorrow, it might be. The boardroom lights came on one by one. Morning sunlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, cutting sharp lines across the long, polished table. 12 chairs. 12 people who believed they controlled the future of the company. At the head of the table sat Richard Hale. For the first time in years, he wasn't early. The door opened. Elena walked in. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. Eyes narrowed. A few board members exchanged confused glances. She didn't rush. She took her time, placing a slim folder on the table, then pulling out a tablet. Calm. Composed. Unafraid. Richard stood. Before we begin, he said, voice tight. There's been a misunderstanding. Elena didn't look at him. There has, she agreed. About who this company belongs to. A murmur rippled through the room. One of the senior directors leaned forward. And you are? Elena met his gaze. Elena Torres. Majority shareholder. Silence. Then laughter. Short. Dismissive. That's not funny, another board member said. Elena tapped her tablet. The screen behind her lit up. Ownership charts. Legal filings. Signatures. Numbers spoke louder than disbelief. The laughter died. Richard felt his throat tighten as he watched faces change, skepticism giving way to calculation, then fear. She holds 61%. The legal counsel confirmed quietly. The room shifted. Power always does. Elena sat. I won't take much of your time, she said. I've already taken 6 months observing how this company operates. Richard flinched. You watched us? Someone asked. Yes, she replied. From the bottom. A board member cleared his throat. And what exactly are you proposing? Not proposing, Elena corrected. Deciding. She swiped again. A list appeared. Terminations. Lawsuits quietly settled. NDAs signed under pressure. Patterns. Over the past 5 years, she said, this company has lost exceptional talent, not due to incompetence, but due to fear-driven leadership. All eyes drifted to Richard. He sat perfectly still. I'm calling for a vote, Elena continued, to suspend Richard Hale as acting CEO pending a full internal review. The words hit like a gunshot. You can't be serious, Richard said, standing abruptly. I am, she replied calmly. And I can. The chairman looked between them. This would be unprecedented. So was firing the majority owner in public, Elena said. The room fell silent again. Richard laughed softly, shaking his head. This is a mistake. You don't know what you're doing. This company was built by many, Elena cut in. Not one. His eyes flashed. I built this. And you nearly broke it, she replied. The vote was called. Hands rose. One by one. Some hesitated. Some didn't. When the final count was announced, Richard felt the floor disappear beneath him. Suspension approved. The meeting adjourned in stunned silence. Richard remained seated as others filed out, unable to look at him. Only Elena stayed. You plan to destroy me, he said bitterly. No, she replied. I plan to reveal you. He looked up. Why? She hesitated. My mother worked here once, she said quietly. Brilliant. Overworked. Invisible. Richard's brow furrowed. She warned you, Elena continued. About unethical cuts. About people being pushed too far. His memory stirred. A woman. Quiet. Firm. Fired for being disruptive. I was a child, Elena said. When she died, I thought the company had taken everything from us. Richard's voice dropped. I don't remember her. That's the problem. Silence pressed in. I didn't come for revenge, Elena said. I came for correction. Richard stood slowly. And what happens to me now? He asked. That, she said, depends on what you do next. The door opened suddenly. A junior assistant rushed in, breathless. Miss Torres, the press. They've gotten hold of the suspension. Elena closed her eyes briefly. It begins, she said. Richard felt panic rise. If this goes public, the stock will survive, she said. If the truth does. She turned toward the window, watching reporters gather below. For years, she added, you believed fear kept this place strong. She looked back at him. Today, you'll see what accountability does. Richard said nothing. For the first time, there was nothing left to say. Outside, cameras flashed. Inside, a fallen king stood in silence as a woman he once dismissed rewrote his legacy. And somewhere deep inside him, something broke. Not his pride. His illusion. The press conference room was packed. Cameras lined the walls like silent judges. Reporters whispered, phones glowing in their hands, all waiting for one thing, a downfall. Richard Hale stood behind the podium. Not the Richard Hale they knew. No tailored confidence. No commanding smile. Just a man in a simple dark suit, hands resting flat on the wood, shoulders heavy with consequence. Behind him, slightly to the side, stood Elena Torres. The room went silent. Richard leaned toward the microphone. For years, he began, his voice steady but low, I believed leadership meant control. Flashes erupted. I believed fear kept standards high. That pressure created excellence. He paused. I was wrong. A murmur spread. Elena watched him closely. This wasn't rehearsed. She could hear it in his breathing. This company succeeded despite my methods, not because of them. Richard continued. And for that, I take responsibility. A reporter shouted. Are you stepping down? Richard glanced at Elena. She didn't nod. She didn't shake her head. She simply waited. Yes, Richard said finally. Effective immediately. The room exploded with noise. Questions flew. Accusations followed. The word humiliation hung thick in the air. Richard raised a hand. There's something else, he said. The room stilled again. I want to acknowledge someone I wronged publicly. He turned. Elena Torres. All cameras swung toward her. She was fired without cause, without dignity, and without my understanding of who she truly was, or what she represented. Elena stepped forward. Not to speak. Just to stand. I underestimated her, Richard said. And in doing so, I exposed everything I needed to change. Silence returned, heavier than before. A reporter asked, Miss Torres, are you seeking revenge? Elena met the microphone calmly. No, she said. I'm seeking repair. Her voice carried without force. This company doesn't need another tyrant. It needs leadership that listens. She paused. And I believe people deserve to be seen before they're judged. The conference ended soon after. But the impact didn't. By evening, the story was everywhere. Billionaire CEO fired the owner without knowing. Power reversed, the day fear lost control. The stock dipped. Then stabilized. Then rose. Employees gathered in break rooms, watching the news in silence. Some cried. Some smiled. Most just breathed easier. In his empty office, Richard packed a single box. Awards. Photos. A framed magazine cover. At the bottom of the drawer, he found a folded note. One he'd ignored years ago. It was written in neat handwriting. You don't need to scare people to lead them. He sat down slowly. Elena watched from the doorway. I'm not here to gloat, she said. I know. He looked up. You could have destroyed me. She nodded. But then nothing would change. He closed the box. What happens now? Elena stepped inside. You step away, she said, and decide who you want to be when no one's afraid of you anymore. He smiled faintly. And you? I'll rebuild, she said. Quietly. Fairly. They walked out together, not as equals, not as enemies, but as two people who had learned the cost of being unseen. Months later, a new plaque hung in the lobby. Not a profit record. Not a growth milestone. Just a sentence. Leadership begins where fear ends. Employees passed it every day. And remembered. Because power doesn't reveal who matters. How you treat those who can't fight back does. If this story made you think, if it reminded you that respect matters more than titles, then subscribe. Because the most powerful stories aren't about the rich or the poor. They're about what people become when the truth finally walks in.